Hello, I'm Paul Macisker, and this video is an introduction to the End Time Bible Commentary. In case you're watching this on YouTube, the End Time Bible Commentary is a free online resource that you can find at endtimebible.com. This commentary is for anyone with an interest in what the Bible says about the future, especially concerning the second coming of Christ and the events associated with it at the end of the age. Let's start on the home page. So if we scroll down the home page, you'll see all the links to the chapters that I've commented on. Now, if you're familiar with the Bible, you'll realize that there's lots of chapters missing that I haven't commented on. That's because the Bible contains nearly 1,200 chapters, and many of those are about history. So I've commented on about 260 chapters that I believe to be relevant to the end time story. So if you choose any of these chapters, I'm going to click, for example, on Psalm 2, you'll see that the commentary opens up. There's a short description, then there's my commentary, and then you have the text of the Bible itself from the Net Bible translation. Now, if you're studying these commentaries, you might want to open the Net Bible as a separate window. You could right-click on this link, Psalm 2, and you could say Open Link in New Window. And you'll see that I've already positioned this so that it's neatly on the right hand side of the page, and so I can read the commentary and I can look at the text side by side. Now, the Net Bible is a free online resource as well. I really like this translation. It's full of translator notes. If you click on any of these little note numbers, then you can see what the translators have to say about that particular verse, and then you can go back to the Bible text here. So that's a great resource. So if we go back to the commentary, you may notice at the bottom of my commentary, in each case, there's a list of tags. So I've got place tags, symbol tags, and these are more general tags. And what I've done is that as I've gone through each chapter of the Bible, I've assigned these tags, which are little descriptive labels that help me make connections between chapters. If I go back to the home page, you'll see at the top of my home page that I have this image. This is a picture of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, as they're known, from Revelation chapter 6. So you have the rider on the white horse, on the red horse, on the black horse, and on the pale horse. This represents the Antichrist, this represents the outbreak of world war, followed by famine, followed by death. Now, I've shown that picture as a jigsaw puzzle with a couple of pieces missing. And the reason I've shown that is that I like to think of the end time story in the Bible as a complex jigsaw puzzle. Now, of course, this is a very simple jigsaw puzzle. In reality, it's the biblical end time story is a complex puzzle with many pieces, and God's people have been pondering and trying to solve this great puzzle for 2,000 or 3,000 years. So the way I've approached this is a little bit like a detective. If you can imagine that a detective plasters a whole wall of a room, maybe with post-it notes, cuttings, photographs, anything that might be relevant to the case. And then maybe they attach pins and strings and they try to make connections between different pieces of the puzzle. So that's effectively what I've done with my tags, but in an electronic form. They're my post-it notes and connections. If we go back to Psalm 2, for example, and look at those tags, so in the general tags, I've put coronation of Jesus, Jesus establishes his kingdom, and so on. So let's look at that first one, coronation of Jesus. And if you look at verse 6, for example, you can see why I've placed that tag. In verse 6, God says of Jesus, I myself have installed my king on Zion, my holy hill. So going back to the top of the page, if we click on the search page, here you'll see my tools that I've used to help me study and make those connections. So looking at the tag search, I've got the place tags, symbol tags, and the more general tags. So if I open that up and I'm going to type in coronation, And you can see that it identifies 11 different chapters where I've applied that tag. So if I click on that, now you can see which chapters those are. So picking one, for example, Zechariah chapter 6, if I click the link for that. Now you might wonder, well, how is that relevant? If I press Command F or Control F on a PC, that brings up my browser search box. And if I type coronation in there and press enter, then the browser search box will highlight on the page where that word coronation comes. And so you can see, if you read that text, you'll see why I've applied that and which verses it relates to in Zechariah chapter 6, for example. So let's go back here. Just press the back button with the shortcut keys. And if I wanted to look at other chapters, I could look at Luke 19 and again bring up my browser search box, and I could look up where coronation is highlighted on those pages, on that page. So that's my tag search, and that uses tags that I've applied. Now I've also got two search boxes that do a comprehensive search of my commentaries and the associated biblical text. I could put into here, I could put coronation and press enter, and that would search again all of the different commentaries, and I think it finds a little bit more. So maybe there are some places where I've mentioned the coronation but I haven't actually applied the tag. So that's another different method. If I go back, you'll see there's also a Google search. I could type coronation into that. Now this is it's a plugin that uses the power of Google search, and you'll see, of course, ads come up because it's powered by Google. But this is a Google-powered search of the End Time Bible commentary. So these are all chapters within my my commentary, and again, so I could just open up any one of those, and then I could use the browser search again to find where on that page the word coronation comes. So those are my search tools that have facilitated my study of the end time puzzle. So let's go back to the home page for a moment, and let's just consider Revelation. You'll see that I've got a commentary on every chapter of Revelation because every chapter is relevant to end times. A lot of people who study end times dive straight into Revelation and try to make sense of it. Revelation is full of symbols and metaphors and is considered the most mysterious book of the Bible. In some ways, trying to dive straight into it and make sense of it, it's a bit like trying to build a house without actually having built the foundations. Most of those symbols and metaphors have a basis in the Old Testament, and you need to kind of understand those first. So what I've done is I've worked my way through from Genesis all the way through the Old Testament and then through the New Testament, and I've ended up in Revelation and then written my commentaries on Revelation last. And I think that's the right way to do things. Now, I took nearly a year off work to do this study and to write my commentaries. I'm not suggesting that you would do that, but I hope that what I've achieved will be of interest and use to many people with an interest in end times. So let's scroll to the top of the page, and I'm going to click on timelines. So this brings up my main timeline, which is my attempt to place end time events in the correct chronological order. Obviously, I don't claim that this is infallible, but it's my best attempt to do that. Now, the backbone of this timeline is really given by what Jesus said about his coming in Matthew 24. Matthew 24 is part of what's known as the Olivet Discourse, At the beginning of the chapter, it's recorded that Jesus told the disciples that the temple would be destroyed and not one stone would be left upon another. And then he went out to the Mount of Olives with his disciples, and the disciples asked Jesus what the signs would be of his coming and of the end of the age. In response, Jesus gave about 35 signs for us to look for, and his response is recorded in 4 different chapters of the Gospel: Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke chapters 17 and 21. So putting that all together, there's about 35 signs that he gave us, and he gave us a lot of detail in that chapter. So that provides the backbone for my timeline, but then I also reference various other parts of the Bible, and especially the book of Revelation. So I leave you to follow my timeline. One of the things that I don't try to do is set a date for the second coming. Jesus made it very clear in that chapter that only the Father knows the day of his coming. So I don't attempt to set a precise date. I do believe that the second coming is very soon. I think that we're within a decade or two of the second coming, but I don't make any attempt to specify a date. That's one of the pieces that is missing in the end time puzzle. There's also a timeline for Revelation. Revelation is so detailed that if I try to put everything into one timeline, it would be a little bit cumbersome. So the Revelation timeline goes through the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls, and so on of Revelation. The seals, trumpets, and bowls in Revelation, I believe, follow a chronological order. There are also sections in Revelation where it's like the camera zooms out and you get more of a wide-angle view of what's going on during the Great Tribulation. And so those sections I've put in a different colour, in orange, to differentiate between those. So those are my timelines. And what else? Well, I've got a questions page. There's not an awful lot on here at the moment, but you might wonder, for example, why should we study end times? And so here is a short response to that anticipated question. So going back to this page, you'll see that there's various other questions. How can I become a Christian? If you're not yet a committed Christian, you might want to look at that. Doesn't science disprove the Bible? Now, this is not a question that I answer myself. It's a question I struggled with when I was a teenager. And I've included a video of a sermon from the internet by Philip Gennadu. He's a great communicator with lots of sermons on the internet. And I think he gives a very, very interesting talk on cosmic wonders of the universe, which point to the existence of God. And he doesn't completely answer that question, does science disprove the Bible? But I think he gives a very thought-provoking treatment of many issues. So if you've got any questions for me, you can email me. My email address is paulmacisker@gmail.com, and I will try to answer your questions. I may add additional responses here or make videos to try and answer your questions. Finally, there's a blog page. There's not really anything on there at the moment, but in due course, as I make changes or additions to the End Time Bible Commentary, I'll point you in the direction of those via posts on my blog page. So that's an overview of my End Time Bible Commentary. I hope you find it interesting and helpful. If you'd like to follow any additional videos that I make in due course, please click the subscribe button. Thank you.